Good morning, class. You need to get out your iPads, and you should be logged into your file called Graphs. We went over that yesterday, got them loaded up. It should be in Annotate, or it should be in Notability, or whatever note-taking device. If you did not bring your iPad, well, it's a bummer for you because it's going to be too hard to hand copy everything, so you're going to have to make up this time on your own after school sometime and fill out all the notes. So Mr. Morrow will record that. Whoever didn't bring their iPads or whoever is not paying attention as we're going along will have to make this up after school. So my goal for you guys to do for the end of this little lessons on constructed graphs is you'll be able to identify which variable is the x-axis or the y-axis. And so that's what we'll take through. There's several steps to these creating a graph correctly that we're going to go afterwards. So the purpose, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Almost everyone has heard of this famous saying. Often it is true that information can be communicated more easily with a picture instead of using a spoken or written message. Your task in this chapter is to learn to draw one special kind of picture, a graph. So basically, an objective or our goal after this chapter, you'll be able to construct a graph with a brief description of investigation and a table of data. This says approximately 45 minutes. To get through this all, it'll probably take us about 3 days to get through this. So here we go. An example of what we're right here for those of you guys paying attention. An example of what you will be able to do when you finish this chapter is shown below. You'll be giving the type of information found on the left-hand side of the page, and you'll be expected to produce the type of material found on the right-hand side of the page. So you'll be giving an investigation like this. Beans were soaked in water for different lengths of time, and their gains in mass was recorded. You will have to determine if soaking time is your independent variable or gain in mass is your independent. Then you'll correctly put them on the x and the y-axis. Then you'll have to correctly put the points on there, so run and jump, and you'll be able to make your graph. Okay, so the part above the graph labeled gain in mass is called the vertical axis. Another name for vertical axis is your y-axis, or dependent, and the part labeled soaking time is called the horizontal axis. Together they make up the axes of the graph. Now horizontal, that is your x. Alright, so let's go ahead and label this right here. Let me grab my pen tool. Okay, remember, this right here, up and down, that is our y, just so we know. Whoa, that got craziness on me. And then the horizon, right here, this is your x, just so that we know. So go ahead and label that. Alright, suppose you wish to construct a graph from the table of data given above. What would you do? After drawing the horizontal and vertical axes, the variables from the data are written along those axes. When deciding which variable to assign to which axis follows this rule. Okay, now this is very important right here. See, I got the little star right there. You guys need to highlight it. First of all, we need to change this. We have to get rid of manipulated variable. And we're going to put the independent. Okay, we're going to change that right there. We're going to put the independent. And I'm going to have to get out of here so I can get to my pointer tool. So we're going to put that as being the independent. Now, in the next part, which you could probably guess we're going to cross out, it says the responding variable. Now, we don't use this term responding variable anymore. Instead, we're going to call it the dependent. Variable is always written along the vertical. So the independent, now remember we talked about this before. The independent variable, it relies on nothing. It's often called the x variable. The dependent is the y variable. So when you're solving equations, your x is always independent, your y is dependent, especially with graphing lines. So just a little thing to remember, with that is that x is independent, y is dependent. What depends on what will determine. It's very, very important you could be able to identify these variables. And I will be referring them to them all year as independent and dependent variable. I'll be referring them to x or y. Alright, so let's take a look. Let's continue. Remember, star this rule, be excited for it. In the case shown above, the amount of fertilizer was deliberately manipulated in the height of the plants then were measured. So the amount of fertilizer should be written along the horizontal axis, and the height of the plant should be written on the vertical. This graph below shows it correctly. Okay, and the reason why the amount of fertilizer is your independent variable is because how much fertilizer you put on your plants determined how tall they got. If you've gardened before in the past, you should know this. If your mom and dad put a lot of fertilizer on a plant, then guess what? The plant grew pretty tall. If they put a little, hardly any, it didn't get it as tall. So that's why the amount of fertilizer is your independent variable. The height of the plant is your dependent. Alright, so let's move on. Following are descriptions of several investigations. Beside each description is a graph with a variable assigned to the task. So your task is to determine whether the assignment is proper or not proper. So here is our first little investigation. It says investigation. A ball is dropped from several distances above the floor and the height of the bounces are measured. So what you need to do is determine if this graph is correct. If the height of the bounce is your independent variable and the distance above the floor is your dependent. So does the height of the bounce determine your distance above the floor? So which one is independent and dependent? I'm going to give you approximately 30 seconds. Go to determine that. Alright, time. Give me a drum roll, please. Come on, give me a big one. Alright, live like a rock star. Awesome. Alright, let's take a look at this right here. The assignment is reversed. And let's talk about why this is reversed real quick before we move on. The height of the bounce. So you're trying to tell me that the bounce is going to determine how high you move your hand up and down to drop it? No, it's not. How high you drop the ball, so wherever you put your hand with that ball is going to determine the return of the bounce. So that's why this guy right here should be the independent, and the height of the bounce determine is the distance above the floor. So assignment reverse. Let's go ahead. Let's look at our next example. Alright, here's our next example. A candle was burned under glass jars of different volumes to see if the length of the time the candle burns is affected by the volume of the jar. So they are saying right here the independent variable is the volume of the jar. The dependent variable is the burning time of the candle. Go ahead and go. You've got approximately, let's go with 20 seconds to determine if it's assigned okay or the assignment is reversed. Go. Time. Give me a drum roll, please. Give me a baby drum roll. Oh, now give me a big drum roll. All right, live like a rock star. Gotta have a little fun with this. All right, let's take a look here. And it was assigned okay. The volume of the jar is going to determine how long the candle burns. That is correct. If you got that right, stand up. Go, oh yeah. Good job. All right, let's do one more example before we take a break. Remember, don't be cheating, don't be going ahead. All right, it says investigation. An investigation is done to see if the diameter of rubber tubing affects the time it takes to siphon water out of a container. So right here it says time to siphon is your independent variable, and the diameter of the tubing is your dependent. So it's saying the diameter of the tubing is relying on the time to siphon. You have approximately 20 seconds. Go. Time. All right, let's take a look. The assignment is reversed. Oh man, if you got that one right, please stand up and say, I rock. All right, good job. Now let's talk why this is reversed. The diameter of tubing, so that means how big the tubing is going to determine how fast you could siphon. So that's why this guy should be down here on the bottom, and the time is going to rely on the diameter. All right, let's look at our next one. It says several descriptions of an investigation follow. Write the variable. You know what? Before we do that, let's take a break. All right, so let's take a break. Someone please come up to the board, press pause, or have the sub press pause. All right, now let's look at these next ones. We're doing a little different. It says right here, you're going to write the independent variable along the horizontal axis, and you're going to write the dependent variable along the y. Don't forget to include the units. So they're going to give you the investigation. You're going to write which one goes here. And see, they gave you the title, size of hook, or number of fish caught. And then you're going to write the y right there. So go ahead, take 20 seconds. Go ahead and go. All right, time. Give me a drum roll, please. Live like a rock star. And we are on the next page. All right, the size of your hook was your independent variable. The number of fish was your dependent variable. So let's go ahead. Let's give another practice try on these. Here's your next investigation as to what is to determine. An investigation was done to see if the number of surfers on the beach was affected by the average height of the waves. Go ahead, take 20 seconds, go. All right, time, give me a drum roll, please. Live like a rock star. All right, and let's see right here. You should have had labeled the average height of the waves is your independent variable. The number of surfers is your dependent, and that makes sense because if you're going to have the height of the wave is going to determine if you got a lot of surfers or if you don't have hardly any surfers. All right, if you got that right, stand up and say, "Oh yeah." All right, good job. Now let's go ahead. Let's take a look at this example. It says rocks from several depths in a mine were collected. The density of each rock was recorded. Go ahead and go. Determine which one is your X and which one is your Y. All right, time. Okay, give me a drum roll, please. Live like a rock star. All right, this one was a little more tricky. The depth of collection was your X and the density was your Y. Go ahead and read this right here and it'll tell you why. But we're running out of time here, so take 30 seconds and go ahead and reflect on today's lesson. Go. Time. Table partner 1. Go ahead and summarize the table partner 2 of today's lesson. Table partner 2 reflected table partner 1. Alright guys, have a great day. I look forward to seeing you when I get back.